KakaoTalk details and join the Symposium channel. Yes. Are we okay, Dr. Randlee? Okay, so let me start again. My name is Natasha, Reddy, and I'm a student at with the TESOL-MALL program. I'm also a professor at Woosong University and a kindergarten teacher. So lots of different caps. So if my teaching method goes all over, please understand where I am coming from. This is Dr. Reddy. He's my colleague at Woosong. He also happens to be my husband. So he will be handling the activities at the end of the presentation. So my paper is called Technology and Language Learning, a Less is More approach. And I want to begin by addressing that title. Why would you present a paper at a symposium on digital language use and advocate for less technology? Seems very counterintuitive, very weird. So the rationale behind that is, when I was thinking about the idea of technology and its use in the classroom, it somehow reminded me of my own experiences as a teacher. So I'm going to share a little anecdote with you, and just bear with me. I've been teaching for a number of years, public school, private school back in South Africa. And as a teacher and then also as an administrator, I noticed a trend. No matter what type of school, whether it's private or public school, even at university and even at the academy, the Hogwarts that I taught at last year, there's this trend. When students' results start to suffer, when students don't seem to be achieving the objectives they're supposed to be achieving, the first recourse, the first thing, so this is Prezi presentations, and for those of you that use it in your classroom, don't use PowerPoint. Okay. Yes, this was the solution. Every place I taught, whenever there was a challenge, more. We need more. We need more books. The parents must buy more resources. We must get our students to have more supplementary material. Now, I am not against having a well-equipped, well-stocked school. I just sometimes think that as teachers, as professionals, just to fall back on this thing, we just need more. If only I had more. Throw more money at the problem and it will go away. And somehow I think maybe with the whole fourth industrial revolution and with the emergence of the wonderful technologies that we have access to, that we can kind of fall back into this mentality. So that's why less is more approach. That is what we are talking about. So particularly this question occurs, is more always better? So in the title of this paper, a less is more approach, what I'm referring to specifically, I'm not saying no technology. I'm by no means advocating that we get rid of technology, because as we will see later, technology has wonderful benefit for ESL learning. But what we are referring to is the complexity of the technology that we use and the quantity of digital technology that we would like to use in our classrooms. I think we need to look at streamlining. Professor Kent mentioned some stuff in his presentation as well about how we go about choosing the technology we want to use and we should be using in our classrooms. So this idea of streamlining is where we want to get to. And the reason for streamlining is for greater engagement, which again sounds very contradictory. So we want to streamline because we want greater engagement. And when I'm speaking about engagement, I am speaking about both teacher and student engagement. So often, you know, there's a trend, we are very, and it is a very positive trend, to focus on the student-centered learning. But we understand the dynamic in the classroom is that there is a teacher there as well. So the teacher has to be 100% involved as much as the students need to be 100% involved. And we want to present KakaoTalk as an option of a streamlined application that can be very effectively used in ESL learning. Now, I know it's not nearly as interesting as the bomb going off and, while doing this paper, thing but it's not so exciting. But we also need to look at what's effective. So it's exciting, and I would definitely use games, and I would definitely use Kahoot. But like for my primary go-to, to engage my students and to interact constantly, I would suggest you look at using KakaoTalk. Okay, so let's look at technology in the classroom. Why problematize this? Is this an issue? If it's not an issue, then all of this is just moot. If teachers are okay using technology and technology is being used wonderfully in classrooms, then this is just me making up stuff for a presentation. But let's start with what the research says about technology in the classroom. So, as Professor Kent again pointed out in his presentation, from the earliest manifestations, computer-assisted language learning, computer-assisted classroom discussion, mobile and multimedia-assisted language learning, there is definite benefit. If you as a teacher have not begun incorporating some means of technology in your classroom, you are shortchanging your students. You're also shortchanging yourself in terms of how to express your creativity in the classroom. So there's a range of different researches that I looked at, and what I did was I tried to go back as far as decently possible, still keep it in the 2000s. So we see McLaughlin and Oliver, they looked at very broadly how language learning using computers, how it benefits students. And then if we look at Hefner, 2004, it's not just language learning, we understand this. For our purposes, we are focusing in on language learning, but it has benefit in all areas of learning. And then Zheng and Woshao, 2017, look specifically at ESL instruction in use of technology in ESL instruction. So very quickly, general benefit specifically for ESL learning and technology use. Kessler, 2013. We understand and we saw from Dilbar's presentation, technology allows collaboration. If you choose your applications, if you use your technology, if you use what's available, if you consider the proper sound pedagogy behind it, it can get your students engaged like nothing else can. Andrew and Nicole demonstrated that. This will get students talking to each other. It will get students interacting with each other. It will get students thinking about each other's perspectives. There's been a lot of research done on the use of Facebook and wikis, and we will hear a presentation later on, but it can get your students collaborating. So there is that positive benefit. It increases participation. Anyone here uses Kahoot in their classrooms? Okay. So we know that even your low participation students, if they have a quiz on Kahoot, they are all into it. They are engaged, they are participating. It depends on your objectives, on what type of participation you're looking at. As Nicole pointed out as well, if you're just interested in getting them talking and using language authentically with each other, you can achieve that through technology. If you're looking at more structured ways of doing it, you can do that with technology as well. So it increases participation. And then McLaughlin and Oliver, again, one of the key things they point out is that it's not just that the technology is engaging the students, but use of technology can promote active learning. It's a catalyst. It can encourage your students to initiate learning by themselves, for themselves. So, where is the problem? If technology is so wonderful, why am I saying streamline? What is the problem? So, the reality in the classrooms we're talking about. Is there a challenge? Am I problematizing something that is not actually a problem? I want to ask you a few questions to begin. You as an educator, as a teacher, as a student in an ESL classroom, what has been your experience with technology? So anyone here, please feel free. What has been your experience using different forms of technology in your classroom? Terry?
Well, I use Kahoot as a way for vocabulary review for my students, and they really do love it.
Okay, so you've used Kahoot. Is there anything you would not use, Terry? Not because it's inappropriate for the students, but maybe because you don't feel confident using. I know I'm asking leading questions.
No,
forgive me.
no. I was trying to think. There's nothing that I won't use.
So you will try it once.
I'll try everything.
Okay. What about others? Have you? Let me. Okay. Go ahead.
I sourced using Google Forms as much as possible for quizzes and tests to save paper and save me some time and creative.
Okay. So again, I will ask the question: have you come across a technology or an app? Someone says they swear by it. This is a good, but it's just not for me. You wouldn't use it. Okay. So we've got some very high integrators, Dr. Kent would say, teachers who are very adept at taking technology and using it for their classrooms. So let me ask, is there anyone here that has just had this idea, that one's too complicated, let me leave it aside? Okay, I will put my hand up there.
We are encouraged to start using LMS. So most of us have never used it, and we had a choice of Edmodo or Canvas or Google Classroom, and Canvas was it was so difficult to navigate. The students just couldn't get it done. So we went back to Google Classroom, which is like grade 1 easy, and most of the times my colleagues have decided to not use Canvas or Edmodo for that matter, and rather go to something like Google Classroom because it's much easier.
Okay, so again, let me just share a very quick interaction. I know we all just take it for granted. We're sitting in the symposium and we probably take it for granted. Every teacher will be open to using technology in their classrooms. But there are challenges. There are challenges with maybe the complexity of the technology itself, with the teachers' training. I remember very clearly a few months ago a conversation I had with a fellow professor, and he said to me very clearly, he says, you know what, I don't even use PPT. So I had not met him until that point, and it was just a passing conversation. He said, I do not use PPT. Some teachers need to use PPT because they're boring teachers. So we have different mindsets amongst teachers. We have different mindsets among students. And all of these things can pose as barriers to successful integration in a classroom. Very quickly, 3 broad reasons. Systemic, your institution that you teach at. I remember Andrew bemoaning the place he taught at last year where they would not allow technology. They felt it was a waste of time. You have systemic and institutional problems, challenges that prevent teachers from using. If they want to, maybe they cannot. Again, you also have access issues, where maybe you want to and the institution is open to it, but the cost factor or the logistics, South Korea is very blessed in that we have a very high Wi-Fi penetration rate. But in South Africa, it's not like that. The data costs are very, very high. Second reason is personal mindsets, issues with experience with technology. I think I'm one of those people, I'm open for the challenge, but if I haven't tried it, it will take me a while to get going. And I need to feel confident in it before I would use it in the classroom. So that could be a barrier for me, integrating certain things in my classroom. And then professional training, we will look at, has the teacher been trained? Are students equipped to understand and to use those technologies? The one we want to look at, the researcher that I want to look at is Rodney Jones. He covers this so nicely in looking at digital competencies, and he says it's not just about what the teacher can or cannot do. You know, again, going back to the illustration I mentioned earlier about we just need more. Our teachers need more training. Our teachers need better equipment. But sometimes it's not just about that, especially when we're speaking about digital technologies and how we bring them into our classroom. So one of the things, or some of the things that he suggests, is that one of the ways to overcome these barriers is to begin by looking at our needs analysis. Look at the digital practices of your students and your teachers. You're going into a classroom for the first time, it's the first semester, first lesson, and you want to make it a wow. You want your students to be engaged, but you need to check. You need to take time to find out from your students what are they involved with, what interests them. That is a basic. So when it comes to digital technologies as well, we need to be able to do that. Look at what's the commonalities. We need to look at integrating everyday digital practices. I have a Facebook account, but I call myself a Facebook voyeur because I just look. I don't post anything. I'm not engaged in Facebook, but I just look, I just observe. So it's, for me, having a Facebook account and using it in a meaningful, everyday way is different. It's not the same. So we need to look and check with our students. And then whatever technology we choose, we need to look for authenticity, both for the teacher again and for the student. So that brings us to solution to prevent teachers from having this blockage, or students from having a blockage to receiving or to using technology in the classroom. Choose apps, choose technology that's easily accessible to students and teachers, that's easy to master, and that forms an authentic part of their everyday digital practices. That is one place to start. It's not the only thing. By no means is this a definitive, but it's an easy place to start if you've not gotten going with using technology in your class. So we want to present KakaoTalk. Okay, everybody knows KakaoTalk, yes? Yes. Before coming to South Korea, I used WhatsApp, but it's a very similar principle. So what is KakaoTalk? It's a free instant messaging app. It's available on download from Google Play, App Store, and the Microsoft Store, and it's available for desktop. So you can use it across a number of different devices, and you can sync all of those chats. It's a multimedia platform. It allows text, voice, video, images. There's gaming, and it uses QR codes, as you saw at the beginning of this presentation, where Dr. Randlee walked around and everyone shared their contacts. But for anyone living in South Korea, you know that KakaoTalk is not just texting. It's an integral way in which businesses operate. You have Kakao Taxi, you have small businesses, even larger businesses that do a lot of advertising and offer support for their customers using KakaoTalk. So it is actually quite an important part of digital practices here in South Korea. But not just South Korea. If we look worldwide, across the globe, every region, every area has their favorite. So we look at WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, North America and Africa. We look at Asia, parts of Asia, into Europe, WhatsApp, Kakao, China, WeChat, and in Japan, Line. So there's lots of different messenger apps. And I like to think of them as equal opportunity apps. So the reason I say equal opportunity apps is that if you have a phone, you probably have a messenger app. You may not have Facebook. You may not have a Twitter account. You may not have access to being able to download games, but you will have a messenger app. So in general, and again, I will stress that in general, I would say that it is something students will walk into the classroom with. Most offer free text and or video chatting for in-app use. So your students interacting with each other is not going to cost them money. You interacting with your students is not going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, using free Wi-Fi and minimal data costs. And obviously the data costs, if you were in South Africa, it's a different story. But we are talking about our South Korean context where we are privileged to have high Wi-Fi penetration. Okay, how can we use it in TESOL? Or why should we use it in TESOL? Let me just pause there. Who uses KakaoTalk with their students? Okay, so I'm preaching to the converted. Okay, if you're using it, you understand that it's easily accessible. Okay, unlike Facebook and some of the other social media platforms, your students, you can use it with middle school students. You could use it with elementary school students if they're allowed to have their phones with them and their parents allow them to have a phone. It's easy to install. It's easy to set up an account. You don't actually need a cell phone number, you just need to generate a username. It's authentic. Your students are already using this. They are already engaging in their day-to-day life using this. It's an important part of how people communicate, not just digitally, but how they communicate, period. And that is what what we should focus in on, helping people to communicate. Messenger apps by necessity, by definition, they are communication driven. Whether it's emoticons or images or videos, voice chats. I wish someone could switch the aircon off, but I don't know how to do it from here, so I apologize. I can see everybody's super cold. I wish there was an app for that allowed me to just switch. Okay, thank you, Dr. Love. So, like I'm saying, I will use Facebook as an example. I have a Facebook account, and when I checked with my students at the beginning of our class, on what would be the best platform to use, I asked them immediately, I said, does everybody have a Facebook account? And to my surprise, no. Not everybody has a Facebook account. Also, having a Facebook account does not guarantee that people will interact. You could, like I said, you could just go and read posts. You could just go and look at other people's lives voyeuristically. You could go in and read news feeds without actually engaging meaningfully at all. Now, I suppose we could argue on what meaningful engagement is, but to get your students communicating with each other and with you. And I think some apps are just more readily lend themselves to that than others. KakaoTalk, with all its features, is very much a social networking platform. It allows for that. So, but it's very simplified, it's condensed, it's easy to navigate, easy to use, and students, they respond. It can be used for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And with all of the features, it allows media sharing, and it can be used to collaborate. Students can respond to content, so if you send them content, they can just respond, or they can download, they can adjust, they can adapt, they can remix content to express their own meaning. So some of the features very quickly. KakaoTalk allows for media sharing. It allows for announcements with comment threads, so you could use it for classroom administration. The good thing about the way in which it's structured here, the announcements, is that it has comment threads. So students are not just passively receiving your class announcements, they can respond, they can reply, they can show their dissatisfaction by posting an emoji saying, oh, I don't like that professor. So they are able to, it is interactive. It's not just you as a teacher giving out information and they passively listening to and receiving it. You have the polling feature, which in my paper I suggest could be used with a bit of creativity. It could be used as a type of quiz. So if you do, I know on some of the apps, I think it's Quizlet, they have what they call a class pass. So to sort of exit the class, you have to answer a few questions quickly. So you could use that feature if you wanted to in your classroom. Kakao Chat allows for multimedia sharing. So it's got voice, text, image, and again, you can comment. And it's got comment threads. And the last one we see with thread counts. So this is very much like how Facebook operates, where people will respond, but not just to the original post, but they will look at what others have said and they will respond and in that way engage in meaningful conversation. Okay, so how do we make a lesson? How do we craft a lesson with Kakao? How do we begin to use it? I was speaking to one of the other presenters earlier on, and one of the things he shared was, we made a Kakao Chat group, but nobody uses it. It's just, I thought my students would use it, but they don't use it. So this is not about just having a chat group. there is sound pedagogy that is needed. You as a teacher, you need to do the work. You need to understand what you want to achieve, and you need to understand how to use this tool, which is a tool. You need to understand how to use this tool to achieve those objectives and to help your students learn. So firstly, I began by using KakaoTalk in a complementary manner. So it is not a supplementary material. It is not for homework. It is not for your students to just do this after class. It is very much linked with what is going on in the classroom. And it's for communication, authentic communication situations, not just, in the classroom, we tell them, okay, you pretend to be a store manager and I am your customer and I am going to ask you this. And so those types of situations, they're good for practice in the classroom, but they're not really authentic. So KakaoTalk allows you to engage more authentically and for the students to engage more authentically with each other. So in beginning, what I did was I used the prescribed course textbook. Here at Woosong, the level that I teach, there's a PRISM textbook, Cambridge PRISM level 3 that's prescribed. There's also course objectives that are prescribed, and I started from that point. I used that, worked with what was needed for the students through the course, and then looked at how the tool could complement that in giving expanded opportunities for them to practice what they needed to. And then tried as far as possible to maintain natural scenarios. It's no use you say, just giving them stuff over Kakao, and it's all very artificial sounding. So some of the things that I used were very much personal to the students and to myself. So the methodology, I use the voice note feature because the course is a listening and speaking course, but you could easily adapt it for reading and writing. We used the voice note feature to pose questions to the students, and they had to reply via voice note. So the component of the course that I looked at was the students had to develop mastery in how to state preferences. So using I would rather, I think, I recommend, I suggest, how to use it naturally in conversation. That was the basic course objective. I have 2 audio clips of examples of my students responding. So both those clips are the same student. The first time we used it, I asked them basically, students love food. So I asked them, I said, what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer cookies or candy next class? And they had to reply. They had to use the language structure, all of the front-loading, actually all of the pre-teaching of those phrases and the language structures were done in class. So KakaoTalk was now used to give them practice in using it. And I didn't tell them when to anticipate the voice notes. So I told them some point in the week you will get a voice note and you need to reply. So the first one, I asked them to indicate their preference, preferring candy or cookies. And the second one, it was around May, so we were looking at attending a cherry blossom festival, so I asked them for their suggestions. And we had practiced in class, so I basically said to them, I am new to Korea, so what would you suggest? Where's the best place to observe and to experience the cherry blossoms? So I would like for you to listen to the way the students responded. The preferences is the first instance, and the suggestions the second, and to just observe and to listen to the change in the way in which they replied.
I do prepare to eat cookie. Thank you.
Okay, so that was very, very soft. So this student is the, just indicate here. So it's this second response, 7 seconds. What I noticed initially is that, okay, I gave out the voice note and then the students started responding. If you look at the timestamps, you'll see all of them responded fairly quickly. It wasn't like a day or 2 later. So that's the benefit also of Kakao, is that somehow or the other, when you get a text, firstly you look at your phone, right? As soon as our phone beeps, we look at it. So it's that ingrained thing with the students as well. Their phone, they got a message, they looked at it and they replied. there's not much time to think and to consider, and like in classroom we give them time to interact. So it is to a measure spontaneous. The second interesting thing I would like for you to notice is that one of the students replied with emojis. So she just posted pictures of cookies. And immediately following that, the student who had replied first corrects her using the L1. So she corrected her, she gave her clarification in L1. The student that you just heard, she also corrected her pronunciation. She said, I think the way she said it, so she types in the words what she meant, which I think is a good way for them to check and to clarify whether they're doing it via voice note or text. The student who sent the emojis then replies via the voice note using the correct language structure. Okay, so the next one is I asked them for suggestions on the Cherry Blossom Festival. This is the same student that you just heard or almost heard. Okay, so we're going to listen very carefully. Okay, so I'm not sure where the volume button is. Okay, so for the purpose of this presentation and just to move things along, we can see the student went from presenting or replying with a 7-second voice note in the initial attempt to a 19-second voice note. So this particular student I've observed also in the classroom, she is a very, very shy student. She's very low participation, not low engaged, but low participation because she's very self-conscious about her language use. But whenever we do this type of activity, this type of conversation via Kakao, she replies very quickly and she speaks a lot more. So I think that we're talking about the affective filter, the emotional deterrent to students in the classroom. Kakao is a good way to get them engaged if they're too shy to engage in the classroom. An interesting thing also I noticed with this particular task was that one of the students posted multimedia. So she indicated, she asked in her voice note, she said, this is a good festival to attend, and then she posted the poster. Immediately following her post, a lot of the other students started to send voice notes together with event posters. So what that tells me is that they're actively thinking about what I've asked them and they're looking to give me authentic assistance. They're not just doing it for the sake of, oh, professor just wants me to say something. Okay, so for me that shows a level of engagement that is desirable, something that I should be working towards. So how do we evaluate? I am a trained teacher, I'm a little bit old school, and I like to know how to test this, how to check it, how to grade the students. Apart from anything else, even if it's not being used for your grading, but just for yourself to see, or for the students to know, how am I doing? You can say good, or you can say, I can show you measurably, this is how we can track your performance. Some people like that, some people don't. It all depends on what you're trying to achieve in the classroom. But very simply, rubrics. Rubrics are a teacher's best friend. Yes? Yes, rubrics are a teacher's best friend. So looking at your objectives, once you've begun by crafting your KakaoTalk lesson, at the same point, you work on what your outcome, what you hope to achieve with the students, and you develop a very simple rubric. So I used very, very simple participation, target language, and complexity. In other words, the complexity of the language used, 0, 1, or 2. And the students were all able to complete the task. All of them were able to use the target language, and I've seen a marked change in how their language progresses through each time we use that type of interaction. We can also use self-checklists with the students. and checking, like, I know one of the things you could do is ask them, you say, you know what, comment to what your friends are saying. Comment, or what did you think about what that person said, you know, and so they can check with each other and monitor their own learning and their own engagement. So we can check quantity and we can check quality. So that is one way to evaluate. Okay. Yes, we're supposed to go into the symposium, but before we do that, the practice activity. Before we do that, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I think you said that you don't need a phone number for Kakao, is that right?
Well, my daughter, who has a cell phone without a SIM, was able to get an account with Kakao. So you use a username and you can, so if you come into Korea for the first time and you have your own phone number from back home, there's issues trying to set up. I know with WhatsApp you would not be able to get it set up properly. So with KakaoTalk, it's generated on a student ID, on an ID, user ID. So you can use a user ID and you can find contacts using user IDs as well.
I'll definitely have to set up one without a phone number.
Okay.
So I'll make it nice to do that. Maybe with this line, my number on the phone.
The one, like I'm saying, my daughter doesn't have a SIM card. She brought her phone from South Africa. She does not have a SIM card, South African South Korean SIM card, but she has KakaoTalk and she installed the app, I think, about a month ago. She installed it about a month ago. And now I've got to constantly listen to that kakao. So I don't pretend to be an expert in Kakao, but I'm sure somebody here who is more familiar with how the app works, maybe we can assist. Okay, so I'm going to invite Dr. Randlee up, and he's going to take us through seeing if this works. Can we actually have a meaningful and interesting lesson using KakaoTalk? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Natasha, for an excellent presentation. Now, what we want to do is just simply test it. I was thinking about what happened a week ago. I was teaching a class at Solbridge, and we were using Macmillan Education everywhere. And the problem was we went dead, the whole building went dead on Wi-Fi. And it was a strange, surreal experience for the students because a lot of them rely on the university Wi-Fi to connect. So you could see the shock and the horror, wondering what to do, but we managed to get back on track. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I came around, and if you scan the QR code or if you punched in technology and language learning, you'll be able to pick up the group chat. Now, I've also installed it on my iPad, so it works perfectly on that as well, and it's easier to interact also. So let's begin. So if you're in the group chat, I'm gonna post something right now. Okay, welcome to our students. Our first student, Terry Beadle, welcome. We're glad you're here early. All right, so I've posted a little activity. We're gonna do two things today. The first is, there is a video link that I have sent to you. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes, or maybe a little longer. I want you to watch the video, all right? And after you watch it, I want you to post a comment. What do you think about the video? So today's class lesson is about K-pop, all right? Do you like it or do you not like it, all right? And if you've not scanned the QR code, you can simply, in your Kakao, punch in or type in technology and language learning, TESOL-MALL. You'll be able to pick up the group chat. Okay, so let's begin. Grab your phone and watch the video. I've shared it already on the group, and I've also posted a welcome message. So, let's begin. Is everybody able to play the video? Okay, so I'm going to share the video link again. right, so the video link has been shared. So you should get it. You're welcome to put the volume on your phones a little loud if you want to hear it, that's fine. So imagine we're in a classroom and you're working in a group, or you're working with your friends. Take a few minutes, watch it.
Sorry, I came late.
Back. And we're going to go to yeah. One on web browser. Yeah, click on that.
Okay, so to speed it up a little bit, so video has been shared, all right? It's pretty interesting. You can, so assume you're in class, you shared the activity, and time's running by, the video link has been shared, so students still have the option of, after class, to go access the video while they're having coffee or whatever, watch the video, and so what they have to do is post some comments. So we have our first student that has commented, a pretty great video, thank you. All right, anybody else, if you've watched it, or if you would just like to share any comment, what do you think about K-pop? That's the topic for today's class. We are talking about K-pop, so feel free to post a comment. Now all the students are in a class, they joined the group, so you're the instructor, you shared the video and the topic, and now they've watched it and you're asking for feedback. Thank you, we have our second, very informative, thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Okay, now we're going to go to the last thing for today, and we're going to do a simple poll. We will have 2 questions, all right? And the poll is, the title is on K-pop, all right? And then the question is simply, I do not like K-pop, or I love K-pop. All right, so the poll will come up shortly, and I love K-pop. Perfect. All right. Okay, so the poll has come up. All you have to do is now vote. Okay, we have a good comment from Nicholas. Okay, Andrew, thank you. And others, all right, from Tech. Okay, so all the comments are coming through. Now, last activity for class today, we're going to do a poll. All right. Do you like K-pop or do you not like K-pop? Interestingly, I'm teaching a class next week, a writing class in fact, and we're reviewing an article from one of the Chinese newspapers. The title of the article kind of prompted interest. Now all the students in my class are Korean. The opinion article simply had this caption. This is the caption of the article. So I've made the article available. I said, guys, read it and what do you think? So the caption is, K-pop is an infectious disease that should not be transported to any other country. That's the caption of the article. So I copied it, I said read it and share your opinion. Now imagine if we were doing the same thing. I would send you the link to the article and I'd say, this is the article we're reviewing. Read it. If we're doing a writing class, download it, read it on your phone, and then share your comments on the group chat. Okay, so, all right, so we have, okay, so the polls are in. We have 5 people that have voted. We have 3 that do not like K-pop and 2 that love K-pop. So based on all of our students in the group chat, we have 3 that do not like it and 2 that do like it. Thank you. If there are any other comments, you're welcome to post on this, and that is just a simple exercise of how to generate speaking, use a topic, and to have interactive discussion. And if you're using your iPad or any other device, even on a Windows platform, you can also begin to use that as well. Okay, so
Are there any other questions? I know time has gone on, but the idea is pretty straightforward. Any questions?
You said that this activity can help to improve their speaking.
Yes.
But right now it's not with any speaking skills. Correct.
Yeah, this is just a simple exercise. You can do it for reading, writing, listening, speaking. Now the next part of the activity, because of time, actually requires that you do a voice note. So that's activity number 3, where you now record yourself speaking, and then you're going to share a sentence or two. What do you think about K-pop? Please record a voice note and share it. That would be the 3rd exercise. We just want. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, over to
Okay,
you.
thank you so much. I'm the timekeeper and I have gone over time. I do apologize. So basically, KakaoTalk, very useful, streamlined, easy to use. Try it. And thank you for your attention.